2025. General meeting for MAPE Local 401. I'm Jeff Gintz, the local president. Thank you for joining us today. We have a lot to talk about. Jason Medor is the vice president. Wendy Einberger McDonough is the membership secretary. Michael Yost is your secretary. Ronald Dixon is the treasurer. Robert Attendito is communications. Kara Hoffreiter is the regional steward director. Sam Sant is the regional board of director. Meeting confer chair is Ann Atkinson. Meeting confer chair for minute is Andy Morris. Regional negotiator is Alex Bajwa, and our business agent is Nick Fry. That is the leadership team. So obviously we'll talk about telework, then we'll have a director update if we have time, other local updates, and Stewart's Corner, time permitting. So I wanted to just say a few things. First off, I was going to read the email that we saw from Governor Walz the other day. It says, "Dear colleagues, we've heard from many of you that telework has provided workplace flexibility, especially during the pandemic. We've also heard that being in the office means collaboration can happen more quickly and problems can be solved organically. With employees regularly in the office, agencies can build strong organizational culture. That is why today we're announcing a change to the state's telework policy beginning June 1st to require most state agency employees to work in person for at least 50% of their scheduled work days each month. This change is about maintaining good stewardship of state resources, including office space. This will be a big change for some employees. For others, in-person work requirements never changed, even during COVID. This policy change provides an exemption for those of you who live more than 75 miles away from your primary work location, helping the state of Minnesota benefit from top talent in every corner of the state. Over the next 2 months, your agency leaders will lead planning efforts to meet the space and scheduling needs of your teams. This is an opportunity for all of us to be together more often and build the strong connections that our work relies on. Thank you all for your continued commitment to serving the people of Minnesota. Sincerely, Governor Tim Walz." So that will be our main focus for today's meeting. I'm sure nobody's surprised by that. I personally am not supportive of this. I don't understand it. The reasons why Governor Walz made this decision are unknown to me, and I know there's been a lot of attention paid to this matter. So we're going to try to, do it in an orderly fashion today. I know everybody is very passionate about this and has their own opinions. We want to try to hear from everybody. We only have an hour, though, so we may not be able to get to all comments. We are going to send a survey at some point where you can, let us know your questions and concerns and comments on the survey also. So we'll try to, again, keep it professional, keep it orderly, and Nick and I will try to call on people as they have their hands raised or have questions. But there are some things that we have to get to and talk about here, and just want to make sure that we're all staying professional as much as maybe we want to express ourselves in other fashions. So how will this policy impact you, and what can you do? If you're not a member, we need you to be a dues-paying member of MAPE. So you go to mape.org and you can hit the button in the upper right-hand corner that says Join MAPE, and you can become a dues-paying member of MAPE. And then also we have the contract action team. We've been recruiting heavily for the contract action team. Last week we had a team of recruiters at MAPE Central, and we recruited 45 new members of the CAT team. So we had an amazing response, and that was before the Walz telework email. So our members are motivated, and we're looking to organize for the upcoming contract negotiations. And so you can join the contract action team if you're interested. And then we also have the opportunity to become a steward, and there's steward training on April 25th. So those are just some of the things that you can do to take action and get more involved with your union.
Does anyone want to volunteer to go first and say how this will impact them? I think it's going to impact a lot of us, but
Before we start,
we want to hear.
may I just mention we don't have time for everybody, of course, but there is already a survey that was sent out by MAPE Central by Megan Dayton, which has specific questions for please share your stories. Please tell us how this is going to affect you. So if you don't get a chance to share here, share there as well. And we'll also be asking here at Revenue.
I see Pao Yang.
Looks like Pao and then Robin. Yeah. Jeff
Okay.
may have.
Sorry. Can
Go
you
ahead,
hear me
Pao.
now? Okay. Yeah. This will definitely impact me. Simply because I have small kids attending school, and they are in elementary school, and they simply can't be left home alone for the time being. That myself and their mom, we are not due to our work schedule. If this were to happen due to our work schedule, there will be a period of about almost 3 hours from when my kids get home before I can get home from work, and this is going to impact me a lot because they are too small to be left alone, and no child should be put in that position. So this definitely impact me a lot, and I can say with good confidence that this will definitely impact a lot of our colleagues and our MAPE member as well. And yeah, this is just what I want to get out. There's a lot more that I want to say, but I will save that for the survey. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Pao, and please, that was a good story, and that's the type of stuff that we're looking for. So please follow the links that have been emailed to you, and we'll put them in the chat to tell that story. That would be helpful. Thank you. Robin?
Yeah, so I have a high needs autistic son who is 11 years old, and he requires 24/7 care. I currently do qualify for a waiver through the state and the federal government. And so I use that money that I get for the waiver to pay caretakers to watch my son when he is at home while I am at work. Okay, so as you know, probably the federal and state budgets have been cut, and most, if not all of that waiver money will be gone. But now this change impacts me because if I need to go into the office, I live about an hour away in no traffic or 2 hours away during rush hours. So it would cost me an extra close to $1,000 a month to be able to pay somebody for the hours that I would not be home because I'd be commuting. That's in addition to the other costs of daycare. So basically, I'm looking at a just because of this one change and $1,000 a month extra costs just to keep my job. And I can't see how I would even be able to do that because by in 9 weeks, I would have to find, train, hire, have background checks done. And there isn't anybody in this area because I live in a rural area. There's nobody that I could find to do that. So essentially, my special needs son who needs 24 hours a day care would not be able to be cared for. So that's what I'm looking at just from this change. And I can't do it. I've been with the state for almost 17 years. I run a program without having this change or with having this change happen. I will leave state service. I will be jobless until I can find something else. The only reason I've been able to maintain flexibility to afford care is because we've been able to work from home. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing that, Robin. Would you be willing to, can I pass your name along to our comms department? And would you be willing to potentially talk to them? And they're looking for these types of stories.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Victoria?
So I am one of the quote unquote exempt employees. I live 207 miles from Stassen. Stassen is my home office, but the policy that, what is it, 1422 that they updated that's effective June 1st says I will be guaranteed 50% work from home. Okay, cool. So I'm not like everybody inside the 75 miles. I won't be expected to do more than 50%. But I can still be expected to do 49% in office based on the what I've taken from that. Of course, nobody can tell me for sure, one way or the other, what my expectation is going to be. I also have 2 children that are currently in kindergarten and first grade. So, okay, I drive 200 miles on, say, Monday morning, leave my house at 4 a.m. to get to Stassen at 8. Then what do? Do I pay for a hotel and go on Tuesday as well? Or am I going to be expected to go home Monday and come back on like a Wednesday? So if I have to do it, I'm lucky enough I would be able to logistically make it work. But like Robin, it would cost me ballpark $1,200, gas, hotel, whatever, probably more. At that point, it would be cheaper for me to uproot my family and find an apartment. I don't see how it's fair to me. I live so far up north because they were targeting outstate workers. And now to say, well, you're guaranteed 50%, but we can make you come in the other 49% if we want. You have to come in halftime. Like, it's just, if I have to, I'll make it work, because there is nothing up here that rivals the pay of the state.
Yeah.
But that's not the case for everybody.
Thanks for sharing. I made a note to bring this to the Meet and Confer Committee to talk about your question about the folks who are over 75 miles. What does that actually mean? So we'll make sure to address that because we're in the works right now to try to set up something with the employer to try to answer a lot of these questions with revenue specifically.
Thank you.
So yeah. Dara?
Yeah, so prior to working from home, I actually lived in downtown St. Paul because I hate driving and traffic and parking. And so I spent the money to live in a small condo downtown so I could just walk or take the light rail to work. And that worked fine. But since working from home, I decided to move back to my hometown so I could be closer to my elderly parents, as well as my aunt who has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's and now lives in care full time. And so her care facility is closer to my hometown, obviously, than St. Paul. And so sometimes we need to stop and help her with things that she needs that the care facility doesn't have or anything like that. And then another thing for me specifically is 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. And so now I'm immunocompromised. And so I'm also very concerned since my supervisor only required us to be in 2 days a year for unit meetings. It was very minimal, like the amount of people in the office, but like, I don't know how many people will be in the office, and especially with like our figuring out who gets to be in the office when and office facilities and how crammed are we going to be in there. I'm very concerned about being around so many people, being immunocompromised. And I've found since my diagnosis, like it takes me twice as long to get over the common cold than it used to. So I'm very concerned about that. So that's also something that like would take away from work in general. So those are my main concerns.
Dara, I'd like to pass your name along to comms too, if that's okay. And you can always, talk to them and tell them, whether or not you want them to do what they want to do with your story. But I think that's also a good story I'd like to pass along.
I'm fine with that. Yep.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Before I get to Heidi, I saw somebody named MB with the initials MB kept popping up with their hand up and then they come down. So I just want to, is there anybody named MB who wants to talk?
I was
Okay.
just, I was going to keep it short.
Sure.
I just wanted to say that they are like mentioning, oh, childcare, but financially, that's not something my husband or I will be able to afford. We are honestly living paycheck to paycheck, and we have 2 incomes. So it's easy to say get childcare, but being able to afford it will be a real concern for us. And also, I have children. I just don't feel comfortable leaving them at home alone. The crime rate is increasing everywhere, and I just don't feel comfortable leaving my kids home alone, even though they might be a little older and I have one younger child. So it's just frustrating and concerning for me as a parent.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Sorry to hear it. Heidi?
Been a state employee for 30 years. I have been telecommuting for 17, full-time for probably, well before COVID, probably 14, 15 years where I would maybe come into the office once or twice a year. So for them to say, now that COVID's done, you need to come back, that's not why I'm home. I've been home. And my elderly parents live a block away. My dad is a 100% disabled veteran fighting cancer. Sorry. If I have to go back into the office, that takes away my mom's security. If I need to go help her pick him up if he's fallen or help get him to an emergency appointment.
I'm sorry to hear it, Heidi. Thanks for sharing that. Definitely. Yeah. Katie?
So, yeah, I mean, in addition to that, it's because I'm at the top of my pay scale, going back into the office is going to be a pay cut. I'm going to have to pay for parking. I'm going to have to find a vehicle to drive in because I've been home for so long. We have a work car that my husband drives to work. I don't have a vehicle specifically that I can bring into the ramp or anything like that. So for my house, it would be an entire lifestyle change since I've been home for so long.
Yeah. And you're in Greater Minnesota?
No,
Somewhere?
I'm actually in Maplewood, so I'm in the metro.
Okay.
So I'm not that far from the building,
Sure.
but
Yeah. But still.
if she needs somebody urgently to come help her, they live a block away. I'm the only one that's home all of the time to be able to help in an urgent situation.
Yeah. Yep. Sorry to hear it.
Thank you.
Katie?
So work in a division that's required to be in every single week. And so that's fine. I'm down here 3 days a week and I have over an hour commute. But my concern is space when they try and get everybody back in here because I have a ton of ADA adaptation equipment. And if they try, like if we have to hotel spaces, I have all this equipment because I can't do certain things and I certainly can't carry this equipment back and forth, like it's a chair, it's vertical keyboard, it's all kinds of nonsense in order for me to just do my job. And so I don't know how they're going to shoehorn 1,200 people into the one available floor in the revenue in Stassen. So.
Yep. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. We are concerned about space, and that's certainly something that we'll talk to upper management about. But I hadn't thought about the angle of the accommodation equipment. So thanks for bringing that up.
Yep.
Matt Richardson?
Yeah, I mentioned a little bit in the chat already. My situation is my spouse has long COVID. We're getting this messaging that COVID is over. It is not. We live with it every day, and the knowledge that the next COVID infection for my spouse could mean permanent, profound disability. Their last infection was 10 months ago. They still have not been able to return to the same work level that they were working before that infection. I'm sitting here going, okay, now I'm required to come into the office where I'm going to be exposed to these things, and there is no protection under ADA or FMLA for this situation. I can't use it. I can't use the situation that my spouse is immunocompromised as a reason to work from home.
Right.
There is no protection for this, as far as I can tell, and we've done significant search. My spouse is a therapist and worked in community um, community support and systems and things like that. So we're pretty familiar with these. As far as we're aware, there is nothing that we can do. And I mean, I'm sitting here on the edge of a panic attack every time that I think about having to go back in, because I'm literally risking my spouse's life. And we're in a situation where, because long COVID is still a thing and COVID is still a thing, I'm so angry because this return to work is going to cost someone their life. It is going to permanently disable someone. And to pretend that COVID is over, the messaging that COVID is over is just reckless, and it is so upsetting.
Sorry, Matthew. I'm jotting down some notes to pass along. Yeah, sorry to hear it. That's horrible.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Devin.
So my situation is I am in a wheelchair. I'm fully disabled, and I don't have the ability to get transportation to make it to work, effectively. I live 35 miles away, so not in the radius that is exempt, and I don't have the ability to use I use PCA services at home that make me feel comfortable to be able to do things that I wouldn't be able to do on my own. And I guess the language that's used with all the policies and with the email that was sent, just it puts kind of fear in my job security, because it doesn't really, show a sign of, if exemptions or accommodations can be met. It's kind of just a very blanket statement without further information.
Yep. We would definitely want you to attempt accommodation and to work with a steward if you have any issues with that. We have a team of stewards who are really good on this. But again, this is a powerful story that tells about how messed up this order is and how rash it is. Chrissy?
I live in Wisconsin, and prior to going to work from home full time, I worked 50% of the time at home, and I live one county past the border, and now it's saying that I won't be able to work at all at working from home now per the policy. So it's like I don't understand how that they can take that away.
Yeah, I don't either. We'll make sure to add that to the list of our discussion with upper management.
Okay, thank you.
One county away. Did you say Wisconsin?
Yeah.
Okay. David?
We're hearing a lot of stories about how people are going to be impacted, and I think we're all going to be impacted to some degree.
Yeah.
I really want to hear, and maybe this is scheduled for later in the meeting, but I'd really love to hear what actions we can take as a union to push back. Of course, everyone should look for individual accommodations within the system, but I don't think that individual action is going to be enough here.
Yes. Thanks for bringing that up. Yep. Our next few slides, there's a lot of action steps that we're going to ask folks to take. We just wanted to sort of have a space to understand the impact first, but yes, that's definitely to come. And it's the next thing. Any other comments on the impact before we get into what actions we can all take collectively? Alexis. Alexis, if you're
Okay, sorry, I
yeah.
got muted for a second.
Yeah, no problem.
That, childcare is a huge expense that a lot of MAPE members have brought forward, and I don't know if it helps us to kind of return that direct impact to us as state employees back to the government itself that we are bringing the revenue in for in terms of that increase of childcare expenses and how focused Governor Walz is on these child tax credits and all of those things, being that we are substantially underpaid for the most part. How does that return to an expense of the state itself? Because then we're going to be, filing our returns with dependent care credits, and we're going to be owed larger refunds because we had to pay directly for these child care expenses to get to work. So I think it's a point to maybe pose that not only is that a direct impact on our income and our children, but how that turnaround is going to cost the, state itself versus just supporting St. Paul if that is truly the intent or one of the intents.
Yep.
So that was all I wanted to add.
Thanks for bringing that up. I have not heard that angle at all, so that's really good. Thank you. Isaac? Isaac? Let's go to Kiva. Isaac or Kiva? Robert, let's go Robert. Having trouble hearing you, Robert.
There we go. Sorry. I too live in a household where I'm assisting my octogenarian parents in getting through the day, and they've come to, we do more and more here. But one thing that I was really upset about when this all came through is who is this benefiting, and why are they not asking the input from the most affected people right away? They decided this without any input from us whatsoever. And the stated goals include improving downtown St. Paul. That's not our responsibility. There is evidence that Governor Walz actually informed the management of Lunds and Byerly's before we were informed, and they closed anyway. And so why are we being treated like, somebody mentioned in the chat, why are we being treated like pawns in this? Why are our situations the least important? And these are questions that I think need to be asked. And I have more, but I will put it in the survey when I get a chance. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, I gotta speak now.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. I'm hearing a lot of resent and anger in our voices, and individual accommodations can be searched for, and I can understand that. And I honestly don't understand why this order came out. But in general, the cost of living is so high now. Inflation is so high now. We're all trying to get by. And instead of supporting us, now he's asking us to go back to work. Spend $10, $15 a day for gas, or $20 or $30 a day for gas that we could not afford.
Yeah.
And pay $200 parking that we don't have anywhere to spare from. I mean, how is that common sense? It's asking each of us to pay $600, $700 more every month that we can barely feed our kids. We're already underpaid. So how are we going to get by? Regardless of individual situations, regardless of childcare, regardless of where we live, even those who live in St. Paul, how can they get by if they're forced to do that? What is the logic for that? It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Carly, and then Sammy.
Yeah, I actually just wanted to underscore particularly what Robert was talking about and what a lot of people have been talking about as far as a line of argumentation on this, that it seems very much like this is an action for downtown St. Paul businesses. This is not for us. It seems like the governor wants to help St. Paul. St. Paul business leaders were at the Capitol, I will note, when this was announced to us. So I think one of the ways we should be framing this to the governor is like, talk to the state legislature and work with them to create a bailout. If it's so important to be giving money to St. Paul businesses, the government should do that directly and not be functionally cutting our pay by having us pay for downtown St. Paul landlords and businesses. And so that's sort of a line I think we should be stressing.
Yep.
Or he can pay us more and then we can pay the downtown St. Paul businesses, but the money's got to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
Thanks, Nick.
Yep. Let's hear from a couple more people, Sammy and Siobhan, and then let's go. And then if folks are okay, I'd like to take us through the next slide so we can talk about what we can do. And then if there's time, we can open it back up for just general comments. Go ahead, Sammy.
Thank you. As someone that lives within the Twin Cities area, I'd be coming in. And aside from echoing a lot of the comments that everybody has said, I figured I would voice the opinion on the topic of that fiscally responsibility, using the state resources that we have, such as, our buildings that are maybe not be utilizing as much because we all can do, revenue specifically can do, 90% of their job from home. And, the big budget that was just spent to renovate a couple of the office floors in Stetson, that's going to have to likely be redone anyway. But the overall cost for, like I said, our employees coming back, it doesn't offset that. And on the point of, revitalizing St. Paul, I, for one, if forced to return to the office, will purposely not be a patron of the St. Paul local businesses.
Yeah.
For reasons outside of just the cost of me having to come in, right, and those expenses, but that will be my petition against the notion, and I would voice that.
Yeah.
So, that's where I'm thinking, like, fiscally responsible. We're not utilizing these buildings that can be utilized in other ways. Remote workers for jobs like these where we're working on the phone and doing this kind of stuff. We don't need to spend millions of dollars a year to have a building for us to do it. It's been proven now for several years. Thank you so much.
Yep. And by the way, take a look in the chat as you were talking, Sammy. You got a lot of support in there. I think your sentiments are very widely felt. Siobhan?
Hi, yeah, my name is Siobhan. I've only been at Revenue for about 6 months, but I started working at MDH right before the pandemic, and I think it's important to sort of keep sight of the broader picture here. We all know that this is bullshit about the St. Paul thing, like that's not going to help. But what else is happening, like across the state and across the country, is federal funding cuts. So yesterday, MDH lost 25% of their agency budget because more than $220 million was pulled. Money that had already been allocated, same as all the other federal funding freezes that we talked about last month. And this is a concerted effort on the part of the federal government to coerce states who are not complying with the budgeting, and all of that. And we're seeing the same behavior from folks in our state legislature. And so, I think while we can talk about how the reasons for this are bullshit, we should acknowledge that we know the reasons for this. Like the reasons for this is because there's this pressure from the federal government. There's Waltz wanting to do a run in 2028 for president and somehow thinking that moving towards the center is going to help that. And you can decide if you think that's valid or not, but like that's how this stuff is going to affect us. And we talked about last month how people were like, well, how is this going to affect us if revenue doesn't get laid off? This is how, right? These are how these things are happening. And MDH announced this morning that they're going to be laying off like 200 people. So we're seeing that in the other agencies as well too. If you guys aren't talking with folks in other agencies, the other agencies are also experiencing these budget cuts that are going to affect their workforce. So just keep that in mind, that this is a larger fight, and it's a larger push to be anti-worker and anti-labor and anti-family. And we can be angry at Waltz, and I am very angry at Waltz for caving to this shit. But we should also keep in mind the context there.
Yep. Thanks for that perspective. All right, let's hear from Andrea and then Emmy again, and then I really do want to get moving on to what we can do, because that's a really important part of this. Andrea, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that my brother works for the Minnesota Department of Agriculture. He got an email from MAPE saying that there's going to be a rally this weekend. I think both on Saturday and Sunday. That's how I found out. I didn't find out from you guys or anyone, but at the governor's mansion.
Yep, that's what we're trying to move on to. Those type of things.
Great.
MB.
I just wanted to make another point about childcare. We do not qualify for childcare assistance, and we cannot afford it. If that's something you want to bring back. Thank you.
Okay. Yep. Thank you. Matt, can you be quick so we can move to the next section?
Yes. I don't know if it's been brought up because I was late or not, but people were full-time teleworkers before the pandemic, so, and then all of a sudden say now everybody has to come back. Like you're not allowing like business to determine what's best for the, their employees. If all of a sudden everybody has to, but people were before, like, you're not letting, us choose, figure out how to best do the job or whatever. Because there was people that were full-time teleworking prior to the pandemic. So it's not like, do you know what I mean? Do you understand what I'm saying? It's not like, it's kind of like, the pandemic's over, so come back. So everybody has to come back now. But, well, there were people that were full-time teleworking prior to that. And at revenue, they were already moving, like they were moving towards even having TA be full-time teleworkers. They had all the equipment to send everybody home, at that time, so it was already something that was happening even prior to the pandemic. So to act like, if they're trying to, say, the pandemic's over now, so everybody come back. Well, people were full-time teleworking prior to the pandemic, and
that's a good point.
Should be allowed to determine what's best for the position.
Yep, you're absolutely right. Hey there, Jeff. I see you. Do you want to take us to the next slide?
Hi, man. Can you hear me? Yeah, I'm going to recommend that we move on to the next slide. I appreciate everyone sharing their stories, and the impacts are great. And it's appreciated that you all would be so willing to share your personal situations. And I know we've been taking notes, and I appreciate all the ideas and the impact it's been having on everyone. So right now we're going to hand it over to Michael Yost to talk about the contract action team.
Yep. Hi, everyone. I'm Michael Yost. I am, along with Lee Sullivan, one of the leaders of the contract action team. I also serve as a steward, and I'm your local secretary. Normally, I just do the minutes, but my role has grown lately because I, like you, have seen kind of the nationwide attack on workers, not just public workers in Minnesota who are losing our telework rights, but also workers across the board. We're losing federal funding. We know there's a deficit coming up in the Minnesota state budget, and legislators are talking about more cuts on top of what's already been talked about. And so I wanted to get involved. I wanted to do something. And the way we do that is through the contract action team. Ultimately, what's going to determine our success in fighting back against this return to office order, it's not going to be anything that any individual leader up here says or does. It's going to be about mobilizing the 1,000 workers that are in MAPE's Local 401. We need to be talking to our coworkers, even if, you've never done it before, even if, you like to keep the union separate from kind of your personal work. We can't just, make this a separate issue because it impacts all of us and it's directly impacting our work conditions. So that's what the contract action team is for. It is there to help us organize our departments, our work units, just lost my train of thought, our departments and work units, and make sure that we come out of this with a strong contract. This will be, telework rights will be a topic of bargaining. Our bargaining season opens April 15th. It goes until we have a contract. The contract is a democratic decision. If management won't budge and says, we're not going to budge on telework, we're not going to give you a raise, even if you aren't impacted by telework, we kind of need to stay together. And, that decision will be a democratic one by members of our local. We can vote on the contract. We can say, no, we don't like this. We want a better deal, and we'll go on strike. We'll withhold our labor. We'll shut down the state government if you don't come with us and we don't do something that, is good for workers, is good for the state, it's good for everyone. So that's what the contract action team is. I made a lot of calls, talked to a lot of people. I think people kind of realize now that, our jobs are on the line, and we have to fight back. And that's what the contract action team will do. So Alex Bajwa is our lead negotiator. He's going to be the person in the room, staring down Minnesota Management and Budget, MMB, telling them to give us a good deal. But he can't do it alone. To actually put pressure on management to actually fight back against MMB, we have to do it together. We have to mobilize. We have to, show up at actions. We have to show up at rallies at the governor's mansion, which is one thing that's been talked about. Talk about a little bit more in just here in a second this weekend. But yeah, it can't just be one person in that bargaining room. We have to bring thousands of MAPE members behind them to support them. And so that's what the contract action team is all about. I will drop a link in the chat in just a moment, unless maybe Lee can drop it in the chat while I'm talking. But yeah, we have a bunch of actions that will kind of cover what can we realistically do next? I made a giant list. We kind of brainstormed them at a leadership team meeting yesterday. Some of them are fleshed out. Some of them, need a little bit more planning. Obviously, we're not the only local in MAPE, so we want to coordinate with other locals as well. We want to coordinate with other unions, the teachers, other, AFSCME is other state workers who are in a lot of the same jobs we are. So it's going to take some coordination, but I can tell you about the things that we have on deck ready to go. First, there is a march on the governor's mansion in St. Paul on Summit Avenue this weekend, Saturday, 10 to noon. I also saw in the chat someone mentioned that it's on Sunday as well. So show up both days. We need an immediate backlash against the governor. This is on Tim Walz. He made a unilateral decision without talking to anyone. Sprung this not just on us, but on his own commissioners who are, running around like chickens with their heads cut off, because I think I saw there's 30 free desks in Stassen right now, and we need to move in 800 workers. So it's just insane. He needs to know this is a stupid decision, and so that's what we're going to tell him this weekend when we march on his governor's mansion. There is a telework petition sent out by Megan Dayton last night. I'm not positive whether you have it or not. We'll get you a link if you don't. That is your way to signal to negotiators to say, telework might not have been a priority when we filled out a bargaining survey over these last few weeks when that one went out. Now it obviously has to be for a lot of people now that it's directly under threat. So it'll ask you, how does this impact you? We've heard a lot of good stories. The people we're negotiating against need to hear them. The public needs to hear them. So we need to collect them, and we need to get in touch with MAPE's comms team and actually broadcast them. So Nick has been collecting some of those, but there's a lot more stories out there. A lot of people who weren't brave enough to speak during the meeting, but definitely have good ones too. Put them there. There's also a question on there that's would you be willing to strike over this? And let me tell you, I would be willing to. I've heard from a bunch of people who similarly say, yes, I want to go on strike right now over this. If that describes you, then say so. this sort of like informal like discussion is good, but like our negotiators need data. They need to have the confidence that members will stand behind them on this. Contacting the governor. That's the next action. He has a phone number. You can call anytime. He probably won't answer because he's a coward. But he has a voicemail on there, and you should leave a message telling him this is
Can't hear you.
1,000 reasons that we've heard.
I'm having a hard time hearing Michael now.
Uh-oh, hang on.
Yeah,
You're still there. You were at full volume, but it cut you down to like 10%.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Better. Yep.
Yes. That number, give him a call. There's also an email form on his website that you can contact him. My kind of informal experience is like they tend to listen more to phone calls than to emails, which they can more easily disregard. So give him a call. It takes 2 minutes. Just tell him like this is a bad idea. I left 2 messages yesterday for the governor because I had so much shit to say. Take that time. It's an immediate way to push back. Next slide. There is I don't know how many people are familiar with the phrase Discord. It's a chat app. We need to kind of move some of our communications off of state systems if we want to be able to organize kind of without the boss looking over our shoulder. We need to have the space to talk to people. Siobhan, who spoke earlier, is one of the moderators on that Discord. Discord is just a messaging app. There's different servers dedicated to different topics. A lot of people are on Discord for like gaming or whatever, but there's a MAPE Discord too, and you can join it. And it's a great way to like keep in the loop with things that are unfolding. There's been a lot of like, articles and stuff shared over the last 24 hours in there that have kind of detailed the, obviously corrupt reasons that this return to office order was put in place. Siobhan, did you want to add anything else to that? You are on mute if you do.
All right, there we go. Sorry. What was I going to say? Yes, MAPE Discord. So there's 3 mods at the moment. If you have any knowledge or experience with Discord, definitely would love some more help, especially as we get more folks in there. When you join the Discord, you're going to need to introduce yourself. I can share the link. Please just send me a message and I will share the link with you. We're not, Discord is not super private, obviously, because anybody with a link can join. And obviously, if we're trying to share the link with as many members as possible, we're trying to kind of keep it sort of limited. But if you can contact me and I will give you the link, either over Teams or through your personal email if you prefer that. The other thing I would say is, when you join, you're going to need to introduce yourself there's an introductions channel. And once you have done that, then there's like a bunch more stuff that you'll be able to see. So when you first join, there's only like 6 channels that you have access to that are the housekeeping ones. We have to manually add people. And so we don't do that until you've posted your introduction in that channel. So keep in mind that thing if you join and you're like, what? But also that because we're trying to manually approve people and like make sure that, we're not just having anybody else. It wasn't 200, it was like 5. But we're trying to manually approve people just to keep things a little bit secure as possible. So just keep that in mind. And yeah, that I think that's it. Whew. Lots of stuff going on.
Thank you, Siobhan. If the telework petition is not a good place, we've had a link for a long time. The MAPE Share Your Story form. Just anything even just beyond telework, any sort of thing that like you're not getting paid enough. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, you should talk about how low state pay for state workers impacts you. That's important during bargaining. That's used in our media publicity. I know there's a press conference being held today where we're collecting stories to kind of share the impact of telework. Stories are important. They create emotional resonance. They build us alliances with other groups who are, you know, on the same page in terms of like they have the same interests we do. Other unions have the same interests we do. Community and neighborhood groups have the same interests we do. We need to reach out, and stories are the way to do that. You may notice that I have a nifty background here, MAPE Strong. It'd be nice if we get more members to put up those kinds of backgrounds. You know, it's something that helps build a kind of camaraderie and a unified kind of front. You know, if we're in the commissioners forum meeting and there are, you know, hundreds and hundreds of people with MAPE logos on it, it shows that they care about the union. It shows they care about our contract. And it's a lot harder to ignore us when we're kind of all presenting a unified collective voice. Finally, the like kind of you know this as well as I do if you watched the commissioners meeting yesterday. Dave said that there'd be a link on our space to like submit questions about this. I'm sure lots of people are submitting questions. If you really want to double check, make sure that he sees your question. You could also email him that question. You know, I when he sent out that forward email of like, here's what Governor Wall said, I immediately replied back, I think this is a stupid, cowardly, and cruel decision, and I can't believe you're going along with it. He read that. He saw that. He should know that. Like, MAPE members are pissed about this. I think every bit of communication he can get is a good one. Local 401 also covers Minute. The commissioner of Minute is Tarek Tomes. I don't know if I pronounced that right. Email him too. Some things to put on your calendar. Bargaining opens April 15th, as I mentioned before. We're going to have some kind of action on that day. Historically, it's kind of been like a, you know, go show your support for the bargainers, like shower them with, you know, like praise and support and cheers. It may be a little bit more involved this time around. I'm not totally sure. We're kind of still coordinating that with like MAPE Central. Again, we are not the only MAPE local. There's thousands and thousands of other MAPE members that we all need to coordinate with. But mark that on your calendars. It should be in the morning. I think 8 to 9 is kind of the immediate plan. Also on April 15th, besides tax day and the opening of bargaining, is the next commissioners forum. You saw the sham that the commissioners forum was yesterday, but you know, the commissioner is actually in a room at Stassen having that forum. I think we should show up for it. You know, it's easy for him to mute us all on chat. If we're present in the building, it's a lot harder to ignore us. I think we have a right to hear from him. I don't think he has the right to just ignore us like he did yesterday. He will have 2 more commissioners forums in the next few months. April 15th is the first one. Second one is May 20th. Yeah, let's show up. Along those same lines, we're kind of thinking about like a little bit of a malicious compliance campaign. Obviously, this is infeasible for all sorts of reasons. We don't have desk space. We don't have parking. It's going to cost a lot. It's going to add to the, you know, state deficit. Whole bunch of like, it's going to clog downtown. There's going to be a ton of traffic. Like the logistics simply don't exist for it. So we should demonstrate that, right? We should show up all on one day and simply put this plan into action and show them how it works. It's one thing to say it won't work. It's another to show it. If there's thousands of people trying to find a parking spot, yeah, it'll be a little bit of a pain in the ass for us, but you know, it's work time. We have the right to show up, you know, to our place of employment. So let's show the commissioner and the assistant commissioners just how stupid and terrible an idea this is. Okay, so those are like our kind of like big show up, do things. There's a few other things that impact like individually we should also kind of pursue. There's contract language that we negotiated in the previous contract, 2023, that gives us a right anytime they change our telework policy, anytime they deny us our telework rights, we have the right to a individual hearing about that. The contract is incredibly clear. And my attitude is we should make it as painful as possible for them. So I think we should all request a telework denial hearing. As soon as it's on paper, like this is your how it's going to work or whatever, let's appeal it. Let's demand that they do it for each and every one of us. Again, it'll be a pain in the ass for our supervisors probably, and if there are any supervisors on the call, I'm sorry, but not that sorry. It's a matter of making this as painful as possible, imposing some costs on them. They think they can do this without, receiving any blowback, without getting bogged down in anything else. Telework denial meetings are one way to jam up the works, throw a wrench in things and make it as painful as possible to implement this. That's the goal here, add costs to the management side of this policy. It shouldn't just fall on us. Let's make sure it falls on the people that are making these decisions. Finally, this is a general issue. I know there are a lot of people with disabilities, some of the people who spoke today, this is going to cause tremendous health impacts. It's going to cause a lot of trouble for people with disabilities or for people who are, caretaking. The Americans with Disabilities Act will still be in effect, regardless of what Tim Wall says about our telework policy. If working in the office is going to meaningfully impact your health, your cognition, anything else, you have the right under the American with Disabilities Act to request an accommodation. There's an accommodations page on our space. Most stewards are pretty familiar, at least with the basics of getting an accommodation. So if you have questions about it, you can reach out to stewards, and we will do our best to kind of guide you through the process. You have a right to an accommodation. If you have any sort of health or disability issue that will prevent you from doing your duties that are under your contract at work. Tim Walls may want us back in the office, but he can't just override federal law. Those are our immediate suggestions. There's a full list online. I will put it again in the chat in just a minute. And it also includes some speculated upcoming actions. Again, I want to highlight, join the contract action team. We need, all these actions are good. I can tell them to you now, but they are so much more effective when we do them together, when we have hundreds or thousands of people doing them. And we can't do that just with mass emails or once a month meetings. We need to talk to our coworkers. And that's what you'd be doing on the contract action team, is getting in touch with your coworkers, understanding how these things impact them, encouraging them to get more involved. It's going to take efforts from all of us. Thanks for listening to me rant. I hope that gave you some good ideas for what we can do. I take this seriously as anyone in here. I want to fight back.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate it. We are bumping up to 1 o'clock, so do we have any hands raised? Sam, you want a quick minute?
Yeah, just a quick question for Michael. The march to the governor's mansion this weekend, is that just our local, or is there an action with everyone from MAPE all regions?
2101 I think is the local that initially planned this. I think 801 just got on board immediately, and I saw it and was like, let's do that too. So it seems like 401's on board too. I'm going to talk with Robert, try to get a follow-up email just to collect all this information that I've just thrown at you into one place. I don't have a ton of details about the organizing status of the march this weekend. Again, we heard about it this morning. We are moving as quickly as possible to get it going.
Okay, Kara.
If anybody can stay on for just a couple minutes, I would really like to just talk about stewards for a couple of seconds, because we need more stewards to help with all of this work.
Okay.
Are we able to
I
move
appreciate
on?
that, Kara. Well, I would say we'll officially end the meeting now. We need to respect the 1 hour for folks that are using this as their lunch break. And if you can stay and are interested in talking about stewards, then stay on the call. But otherwise, thank you for attending today. The fight is just beginning, and the local 401 leadership is going to fight this. Hopefully you received that message from today's meeting. So thank you everyone for attending. And if you are able to and like to stay to hear from Kara about stewards, feel free to do that as well. So thank you for attending. Go ahead, Karen.
Okay,
Sure.
Nick, you want to advance a couple slides? So stewards are the backbone of the union, and they do a lot of work to help within the union. Why don't you go on to the next one? Steward roles include investigations. We help file grievances and appeals. We assist with accommodations requests under the ADA. We communicate with management, help resolve conflicts, and provide information. Stewards receive training to do all of this work, and our next steward training is coming up on April 25th. We do pay lost time for training like that. So if you're interested in becoming a steward to help with these kinds of actions, I highly encourage you to talk to one of the stewards or contact me or Wendy Einberger McDonough, who is co-sharing the regional steward director role with me. Nick, you want to move to the next slide? And as I said, I'm trying to keep this as short as possible in respect for your time. Unions are only as good as the efforts that members contribute. You are the union. We are all the union. And without member support and without member involvement, we can't get anything done. So in addition to becoming a dues paying member, I think one of the most important things that stewards or that the union does is have stewards to help represent you in all of those items I mentioned earlier. Having a collective voice improves your workplace and the ability to negotiate benefits, working conditions, and etc. As mentioned earlier, we're a democratic organization. I have a list up here of all the different stewards. Myself and Wendy Einberger McDonough are your regional steward directors. Ronald Dixon, Christine Moody, and Ted Snaza are deputy steward directors, but you can reach out to any of us, including the stewards mentioned below. You can find your stewards on the MAPE website under the listing with officers and stewards. But if you recognize any of the names up here, feel free to reach out to any of us with questions on how you can become a steward or even take the steward training to see if this is a good fit for you. So please consider becoming a steward and joining the union and getting involved in any way that you possibly can. Thank you.
Thanks, Kara. I know that the stewards are going to be of even greater importance here as we continue these upcoming fights that we'll have for telework and the contract. So I appreciate you taking the time that you can and letting us know about the upcoming training and the opportunity that's available for us to consider becoming a steward if we're not one already. Okay, well, thank you, everyone.
Hey, Jeff, Ronald's got his hand up quick if we're in post time anyways.
Yeah,
ahead,
I just
Ronald.
wanted to. Yeah, I just wanted to really quickly add that the amount of bandwidth for everyone obviously can of course be limited, but thankfully as a steward, you learn about the contract, assist colleagues with contract questions, represent your colleagues in HR investigations. But at the same time, it actually, when we have more stewards, our bandwidth kind of collectively ends up becoming easier, and it's not like a ton of work anyway, thankfully, kind of an aggregate. So the in an ideal world, all MAPE represented employees would be stewards, if not for the fact that it provides an excellent educational benefit to learn about the contract, knowing about your rights and everything. So even if you even if you're in a situation where you don't exactly know how much you'd be able to contribute as a steward, the fact participating in the union MAPE steward training would be incredibly beneficial. Have your name as a steward, serve as a resource, etc. And as your bandwidth fluctuates during the year or during the years, you can participate more or less, etc. But at the very least, getting that initial steward training would be extremely important, especially with these times that we're living in right now. It's probably one of the most impactful things. If you're feeling powerless right now and you're not a steward, I highly recommend becoming a steward. To attend that training, that will give you more tools, more equipment, so to speak, to be able to address everything that's happening right now.
One last thing, also, new stewards are never just sent out on their own. They're paired up with other more experienced stewards for their first investigations and work that they do. So don't think that you'd be thrown into the wolves here. You'd be supported.
Siobhan.